Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for Coffee and Card at Home. Today we're going to be using a retiring set, which means that in a couple of weeks' time we'll be getting a brand new shiny new catalogue, and some of the things from the current catalogue will be retiring, and Happy Tales is one of them. It's one of my favourite stamp sets because I am a dog lover, and this little fella looks just like my dog, so I don't think this will be one that will be flying off my shelf anytime soon. I think it will be there for quite a long time. And the other thing that's nice about it is it matches with the dog builder punch. The dog punch is carrying over, so that will feature in the next catalogue, but unfortunately Happy Tales isn't. But the amazing thing at the moment is it's had a 40% reduction in price, which means it originally sold for £16, and at the moment you can get it for under 10. It's actually £9.60. So I think that is a real bargain for a really nice set that has images and has sentiments as well. So I'm going to show you how to make a quick card today using both of those. And this is what we're going to be making this morning. So perfect again for the time we find ourselves in at the moment. So if there's any of your friends that you're missing quite a lot at the moment, I'm sure they would love to receive this in the post from you. And I'm going to show you a couple of different techniques. One is using something called the mirror technique, where you can reverse the image, which is what I've done with the dogs. And then another technique where if you don't want to stamp the whole sentiment, you can actually split it up and stamp the words separately. So we're going to be doing that with Friends Forever. Okay, so let's get started then. So I'll put that to one side. So the things that you're going to need for your base, you're going to need your real red layer. And this is half of an A4 sheet and then scored down the centre. So it actually makes the front of the card a standard card size, which is 14.8 centimetres by 10.5. Then to go on top of that for your layer, you've got a Whisper White piece of card, and that is 10 centimetres by 14.3 centimetres, and I'll pop these in the comments so that you can see the measurements. And then for the dogs, you're going to need just a scrap of card. So I've just got a small piece here. It doesn't really matter what size scrap you use, but just some bits of Whisper White that you can stamp your dogs and hearts onto. So first of all, we're going to use our backing piece of card, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually put some images down on the bottom of the card. So I've used some paw prints, and I've used them in two different tones. Okay, so we're going to be using two different shades for the footprints of the dog, and I'm using real red, which gives a tone-on-tone effect, and also a slightly darker red, Cherry Cobbler, which makes the other paw print stand out. So got a bit of a mixture of colours there. So I've already mounted up my paw. These are photopolymer stamps, so they're nice because you can see through them. They stick onto any of your clear blocks quite easily. And we're just going to quickly pop a few paw prints on the bottom of the card. So I'm doing light, gentle taps, and then I'm just going to stamp those around on the bottom of the card. You can see I'm going to stamp some of them off to make it look a little bit more natural. I'm going to go a little bit higher up than where my white piece will come, so that I don't end up with any odd sort of gaps. And as you can see, that's quite pale. That's what we call the tone-on-tone effect, and it just stands out a little bit. So I'm just going to clean my stamp off, and then I'm going to use the darker red now. So the Cherry Cobbler, which actually is quite a lot darker. And I'm keeping my paw prints all going the same way, kind of making it look intentional, like the dog has been walking along that way. But you could do them more random if you wanted to. There are other images in the set as well. So you could actually use the bone. There's a little bone which is quite sweet. I'll just show you that there. Or you could use the hearts, or you could even use some of the spotty images which are used for decorating the dog, but you could use those as a repeated pattern on the bottom. So a few different things you could do there. I quite like the paw prints, and the darker one makes them look a little bit like muddy paw prints, which is what my dog does quite a lot. Right, so we've done the base. We're just going to pop that to one side. Next we're going to bring in the Whisper White piece, which, just to remind you, is 10 centimetres by 14.3 centimetres. So you can see that when you lay it on the card, it just gives you a nice edge all the way around, so it looks quite nice. And what we're going to do is we're just going to rip the bottom off. I'm going to go probably about 1/3 in, and I'm just going to rip down, give it a little wiggle so you get a bit of a shape, and then we're going to put that piece to the side because we don't need that. So I'm not so keen on this rough edge personally. I think sometimes it depends on the type of card and how it rips. So I prefer to turn mine over and be that way around, but it's entirely up to you. You can decide which way around you prefer and either use it showing that ripped side or without. Okay, that bit we're not going to touch just for a second. We're just going to leave that for a minute. We're going to work on our dogs next. So we're going to take our scrap and we're going to be using our punch, and I've put the dog image onto my block already. And I'm going to use Memento black ink because I'm going to do a bit of colouring in with the Stampin' blends. Now with the Memento, you need to push down a little bit firmer. You can sometimes give it a bit of a squidge and a twist, and it kind of coats the black on there a little bit better. And just have a check. Then I'm going to put it down at the bottom of my piece of card because it just means that when I put it in my punch, I won't have to cut any off to actually sort it out. Now whilst I'm doing that, I am going to do the mirror image. So to do the mirror image, what you need is a clear block, and you're going to do, I'm just going to turn that around so I can use it the other side. You're going to ink up your dog again. Really try and make sure you've got as much ink on as possible because it will give you a much clearer image. And I'm going to put that on top of my block carefully as I can without it wiggling. Not sure if it did just move a little then. Give it a good press down and carefully lift it off, and you've got your image of your dog. That's not too bad. Then we're going to lay our card on top of it, again very carefully. Give it a press down, good press down, a little bit of a firm down, but being really careful not to move it, and then carefully take it off. And there you go, you've got your mirror image. As you can see, the outline's not quite as defined as the image would have been if you'd have stamped it. But if you really wanted to, you could go over that with a black marker pen just to make it stand out. So it's entirely up to you. So just get that out of the way. I've done stamping my dog, so I can get rid of my Memento for a second. And just move my dog out of the way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the things that come with this set to colour in my main dog that I stamped first. So there's these little patterns here, which are the ones that I used on this dog here, which I was kind of trying to go for that liver white style dog where you get the patches and things. You can obviously do it in a variety of colours, or you've got these spots here which give you a Dalmatian. And if you don't want to do that, you can colour it in yourself with the blends, which is actually what I'm going to do as well on the other dog. So I'm going to stamp using the 3 patches, and I used Make sure I get the right colour. I used Cajun Craze. And just before I do it, I suggest this is a good thing to do, just to remind you before you put any ink on, is just to lay the stamp over the dog so you can see roughly whereabouts you need to stamp it, because they've designed it so that it will fit into the outline. You just need to be very careful that when you actually put it down with the ink on, it does go in the right place. So it's sometimes a good idea to do it first by just laying it over the top with no ink on, so that you know when you actually come to do it, it is going to go in the right place. There we go, that's not too bad. I'm going to do some colouring in anyway, so it will kind of hide any other bits. So that's filled that part in. And then I'm just going to use my blends now to colour in the rest of the dog. You could actually leave it completely white, but what I decided to do is bring in some of the colours to use with it. So I just picked out a few blends. I've actually chosen Ivory, and I've gone for the dark crumb cake and bronze. And I'm just going to use those in a bit of a mixture, really, just to try and get that idea of different colours and shading on the fur. So I'm going to start with the Ivory. I'm using the thick end, which has the thicker line. I'm just going to colour that in. And with the blends, you can be quite quick, actually, because they are quite forgiving. And as the word says, they do blend, so you don't end up seeing any hard lines or anything, so you can afford to be fairly quick. So I've just kind of put a base colour on there. Then I'm going to go for the crumb cake one. I'm just going to pick out a few of these bits where you can see the lines on the dog, and I'm even going to go sort of a little bit over some of the bits that I stamped as well, just to kind of try and get some different tones in there, because obviously a dog wouldn't all be one solid colour. And if it's a little bit too dark and you think, oh, it's not blending in so well, go back to your lighter colour and try and go over the top of the colour you have just used to darken it, and also over the main colour again, and it just helps to blend it in a little bit more if you're thinking it's just a little bit too much. And the nice thing about the blends is, even just by using the same colour over and over, it does build up the colour quite nicely. So I'm happier with that now. It doesn't seem to have any sort of rough edges quite so much. So I'm going to do the other one now and do this a little different. I decided to go for slightly dark colours on this one. So I'm going to use a base colour of the crumb cake. Again, get that colour all over the dog fairly quickly using the thicker end. You can see I'm not being particularly neat, but the blends are very forgiving, and you won't see all of these kind of rushed lines when you're finished. Then I'm going to go in with the bronze and pick up a few little bits again. So some bits around the legs, on the ends of the paws, kind of all the bits where you probably see a bit of shadow. Quite often dogs have darker ears and darker muzzle, and this colour is actually blending in quite nicely without me needing to do too much more. But if it is a bit too much, you can go back in with the lighter colour and just try and blend out some of those colours a bit more, so that it's not quite such a hard line. Blends take a little bit of getting used to, so experiment, have a play around, see what you like. And the thing is, you can always go back in with more colour if you feel you need to. There we go, I think I'll leave that there. Okay, so next step is we're using the punch to punch out the dogs. So the one that we stamped first will come out exactly the way around that you want it to. You'll just get that slight white image around the edge. And also, I'm going to pinch that out, I get a heart. I'm going to pop that to one side because I want that in a second. So there's one dog cut out. Now this one is a bit trickier because obviously this is now the other way around. It's not going to work with your punch. However, if you turn it around, you should be able to see where you've coloured, and it will give you a fairly good idea of the outline of your dog because blends do seep through card. So if you do the colouring in before you cut it out, that will be a good way of helping you to get that right. So I'm just going to find a pair of scissors to just chop the end off here. And squeeze this in. I've not left myself a very big bit at the top, so actually I need to cut a bit more off the bottom. So I'm just going to have to try to carefully wiggle it until I'm happy. The main thing to check really is that you're not going to be chopping off his tail or kind of his nose, and I think I'm just going to have to go for it. I could be here wiggling it around for a long time and it might not completely be perfect, so I'm just going to go for it. There we go, not too bad. It is difficult with these ones, and actually if you'd prefer to do it in a slightly different way, then what you can do is you can stamp onto a piece of card that's already cut out, but that can in itself be quite fiddly, or you can not use the image like that and just use a cutout image. So there's a couple of ways around it if you're not so keen, but that's not too bad. So I'm going to now pop those onto my white background, which I prepared earlier, and I'm going to use mine that way around. And I just decided to that I wanted to stamp my sentiment first, but I didn't want to have the whole thing together. So you can see that it says Friends Forever on the stamp set, but I just wanted the Friends and Forever separate. So I'm just going to do that before I stick my dogs on, and I'm going to use the memento again. And I have the sentiment on a block already, but what I need to do is I need to use a piece of washi tape to hide the bits that I don't want. And this is a really handy tip if there are ever any words that you don't want at all, or you want to be able to separate them like I'm doing. Washi tape is a perfect way of doing it. So I'm just going to check that I've got what I want. So I want to use Friends first, so I'm going to cover Forever over. And just because it's ever so slightly bigger, I need to use a couple of strips of washi tape. Make sure that's well covered over. Then I'm going to ink up Friends, lots of light taps. And then I'm going to pop that in the top corner. But I must remember, and there are so many times that I've forgotten to do this, to take off my washi tape so that Forever is not going to show up. And then I'm going to stamp that in the corner, just so, and it just comes out with Friends. Now I'm going to give my stamp a really good clean. Make sure it is nice and clean. This time we want Forever, so we're going to cover over Friends. So washi tape again, just to cover that over. And again, I'm just going to do another piece just because the words are just a little bigger than my tape. Same again, ink up Forever, gentle taps. Take off your washi tape. Please do remember that, otherwise you get a nice big black spodge. And then try and line it up so that it's in a similar position to friends. This is where you can use your grid lines a little bit to help you check, so that you know roughly where you should be stamping it. I hope that's come out okay, because I did move it a little. There we go. So both of my sentiments on there, and didn't have to do anything with my stamp at all because I managed to use the washi tape to separate them. So now we can do the next bit, which is to mount up our dogs, get those into position. So I'm going to put one just there and one just there, and I'm going to use the dimensionals, just a few on the back. 3 is probably more than enough. There we go. That one's going to go there. And the other one. Of course, you don't have to use dimensionals if you don't want. You can just glue them straight on. It's up to you what you prefer. I like to have them raised up a little bit, giving you that slightly more 3D look. And one opposite. There we go. And then finally, there's 2 hearts that we kept hold of. Just going to colour them in with a blend. And I've got the cherry cobbler, and I'm just going to colour the hearts in. There we go, nice and quick. And I'm going to stick one on with a glue dot, because I don't want that raised up. And to be honest, glue dots are less messy than trying to fiddle around with glue. I'm going to pop that one down in between them. And then the other one I'm going to pop on with a mini dimensional. The bigger one's slightly too big just for this. So just a small one on that. And a bit higher up and at a different angle. There we go. And the only thing left to do is to pop it on my red background. So a little bit of the Tombow wet glue, not too close to the edges so that it doesn't seep out. I'm going to make sure when I put it on that I have equal distance around the whole of the edge, just there, so that it's centered nicely. Press it down. There we go, finished card. And I think you'll agree, nice, quick, simple, fun to make, and I'm sure lots of people, especially doggy people, would love to get one of those in the post at the moment. So if you would like to get hold of that stamp set, you can contact me today, and I can place it on my order that I'll be putting in this evening, and then that will be reduced postage. If you would like to order it directly yourself, you can go online at stampinup.uk and order it for yourself on there, and it will be delivered straight out to you for slightly more postage, but whichever way round you do it, it is a bargain stamp set. So £9.60 when the original was £16 is a really good price. Of course, the dog builder punch is available, that you can buy that in the other catalogue, so that will still be available if you want to order that as well, or you can order it at the same time, and that one is £17 and available, like I say, in the next catalogue as well. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful. If there's anything that you'd like to check, any advice you need when you're completing your cards, please just let me know, and I'll be back in touch with you. If anyone's got any helpful hints for how I can improve any of my videos or anything that you'd like to see me doing, then please let me know by commenting or dropping me a message. And I shall see you all again next week for Coffee and Card at Home. Thank you. Have a good day.